I'm Gary Parrish. That is Matt Norlander. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. If you're watching on YouTube, be Brandon Davies. Smash that like button. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, please do that wherever you subscribe to podcasts like Apple and Spotify. Let's get into it. Champions Classic was last night inside Madison Square Garden, Midtown Manhattan, New York City. Matt Norlander was there for the doubleheader. Why don't we start with Duke 78, Kansas 66. The Blue Devils won by 12. Cameron Boozer, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. What'd you see from John Shire's program last night in the NYC?
Yeah, that's right, Kentucky fans. You're getting spared for just a few minutes here, but don't worry. We're getting to Mark Pope. But we'll go with the game that ended late first because we actually have some. I got a little bit of news attached to this as well. On the Duke end, they're back to number one in KenPom. Not that really means anything much right now, but I think like 5 different teams have been number one in KenPom. Gonzaga was number one going into last night, and then Duke, by function of winning this game by 12 points, bumps up to number one, 5-0, 2 high major wins. Cameron Boozer was able to put up I don't want to call it run of the mill, but he put up 18, 10, and 5 last night, and it did just seem like a casual game for him, which to me is the sign of a truly great player if he can do that and kind of just blend in the environment. What else do you want from me? He's been tremendous, but he wasn't my biggest takeaway. Isaiah Evans stepping up the way he did, I thought was important. And then Caden Boozer, he went to the postgame press conference along with Patrick Ngongba. Ngongba had 13 points, 7 boards, played well. I thought it was good for Duke to have the kind of all-around performance that they had against a Kansas team that was desperately shorthanded. I say desperately even with one player because Darryn Peterson means that much. We'll get to him in just a second. But, through the first 5 games, Duke has passed the test with flying colors with this new roster, losing 5 starters from a season ago. And Caden Boozer, while still an off-the-bench player because you've got Caleb Foster starting at the 1, I thought it was a good step forward for him last night and a good sign all around for Duke. They thought they got themselves into a game, I think, that was closer than most of us expected. In fact, the irony about Tuesday night at the Garden was that the game that people thought would be a runaway was the second game, and that wasn't the case. Even though Duke won by 12, they closed it on an 11-2 run in the final 4 and change. Meanwhile, Kentucky-Michigan State was expected to be a game that was going to be potentially really, really close, really, really good, and then Michigan State handled them. Again, we'll get to that in just a few, but good stuff with Duke there, and then we can get into Peterson in just a second. But what were your takeaways, GP?
Well, it's just Boozer again on a big stage. Doesn't even look like he's having some incredible game. And then you just check the box score at the end of it, and he fills it up. Again, that 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists in 34 minutes. I saw this floating around last night. I guess Duke's social media account tweeted it. But in his first 5 games, he now has scored at least 100 points, grabbed at least 50 rebounds, and recorded at least 20 assists. And that makes him the first ACC player to do that in a 5-game span since Craig Smith did it at Boston College back in March of 2006. All right. Shouts to Craig Smith. That's a name from the past.
I love it.
So now think about this. That's any 5-game stretch.
Yes.
This is Cameron Boozer's first 5 games. He only has one 5-game stretch to focus on. It's the first 5 games of his college career. And in those 5 games, he has done something that literally no ACC player has done since 2006. He's incredible. And I know that everybody, or at least most people, have turned the top pick in the NBA draft debate into A.J. DeBonsa and Darryn Peterson, and that might ultimately end up where it's at.
I disagree. I think Boozer's in there. I think there's a top 3 for that.
Most people don't put him in the top 2. Is that fair?
Oh, I mean, I talked to an NBA person yesterday who had Boozer even before the game in that conversation. So, no, I think he's going to be so dominant. I understand because DeBonsa and Peterson are wing players, have the ball in their hands more. That's why they're considered more likely. But if what you're getting at here is if Boozer's going to continue to be this kind of stat monster,
that's
he's
what I'm
going
getting
to force the issue. I think for some folks, he's there already. But, it might just take repeat performances like this to just hammer home the point. But for me personally, I definitely have him in there. In fact, someone I talked to yesterday even was saying it could well come down to the team that has the pick. That's a conversation for April.
Yeah, and I shouldn't paint with such a broad brush. My instincts, or not my instincts, my understanding of the situation is when you talk to people, they mostly say things like, Cameron Boozer might be the best college player of the group, but if you're talking NBA prospects, I would probably prefer Peterson or DeBonsa. That's the thing I've heard most. And I just think we're gonna move away from that a little bit and start going, are we sure Boozer's not the best? That's going to be a conversation that happens in NBA front offices. Even if they had Boozer, say, third on their big board a month ago, at some point you're going to have to sit down and have a conversation, and the conversations is going to be, I know we love Peterson. I know we love DeBonsa. Are we sure Boozer's not the best prospect, not just the best college player of the group, but the actual best NBA prospect of the group? He's been phenomenal, which shouldn't be a surprise. Again, he's a two-time Gatorade National Player of the Year. As you reminded us in a trivia time, I think last week, only 3 other men had ever won that award twice. It is LeBron James, Greg Oden, and of course, goes without saying, Brandon Knight.
Yeah, of course. It goes without saying. Now let's get to the other player that's in the conversation for number one that didn't play last night, Darryn Peterson. His value in general, I think, is the most important for any high major team in the country. I had a column/newser that went up shortly before we went live here on Wednesday morning. And not having him on the floor, Kansas actually did play admirably. Like it was a good, close, competitive game. In all transparency, I'm trying to file my Kentucky column and trying to turn that as quickly as possible last night. So I didn't get back out to the floor, I want to say, at the under 8 timeout of the first half. And I didn't know anything about the game at that point. So I'm going out and I'm like, okay, what kind of score am I going to see here? And I think when I went out, Kansas was up 1. They were up 1 or down 1. I was like, okay, maybe we have a little something. And they got some good play overall. Trey White had 22 points, played well. Melvin Council Jr. had some good moments there. Flory Badunga as well. But they just didn't have enough. Bill Self did say in the postgame press conference that he wasn't leaving here. This is my word, not his, but he wasn't leaving dispirited. Like he kind of gets the deal. I think they fully understood they were up against it, and they need just a humongous performance from everyone to overcome Duke in Cameron North with the amount of talent that they have. They couldn't get it done, and then they lose it late. Now, Self spoke at the postgame press conference about Peterson a little bit, went into just a little bit more detail. In fact, I will give you the exact quote here in my story because he had given just a little bit more detail on the nature of what Peterson is dealing with. He said, sorry, GP, just hang with me here. He's had hamstring tightness, which is caused by a slight hamstring strain. So until that subsides, he's not going to be confirmed to play on it, push off, and those sorts of things, which has been going on a fairly significant amount of time. We actually feel good about what we're doing. They feel good about it, what we're doing, and we don't think it will be long, end quote. Now, I talked to Self on the walk back to the locker room, and he did tell me that he was hopeful that Peterson will be able to play in Las Vegas next week. Now, hopeful is not he is. There's a difference. Peterson is either going to get fully evaluated on Thursday or Friday in Kansas, and that evaluation will be a very big next step to determining if he's going to be able to go next week. Players Era Festival is 3 games in 3 days. Obviously, Peterson, if he's cleared to play, is not going to play 3 games in 3 days coming off a hamstring strain. My own subjective analysis of this is if Peterson is cleared for Vegas, we will see him in 1 game. That is my guess. 2 would be great. I'm guessing it's only 1. Kansas is in a weird spot right now. They're 3-2 for the first time in 14 years. They're going to fall out of the AP rankings when they refresh on Monday. They need Peterson. Their first 2 opponents are Notre Dame and Syracuse, which are not projected NCAA tournament teams, but they are high major teams. And Kansas is in the midst right now. I mentioned this about Bama about a week ago, Parrish, about their stretch of like 6, high major or borderline high major games because UNLV is in there. Kansas is even more than that. So Kansas right now, this might be, I mentioned on Bama, Kansas has actually one-upped them. They might be doing something we haven't seen in like a decade or more. So they played Duke. Then they've got Notre Dame, Syracuse, and a to-be-determined high major, almost certainly a Players Era. Then they've got UConn, Missouri, and NC State. So it is almost definitely, depending on that 3rd game in Vegas, 7 consecutive games against high major opponents. This is a crucial stretch. There's no bye game in there, folks. It's from last night against Duke all the way until December 13th against NC State. Nothing but high majors. They need Peterson, but it's this delicate, okay, we can't force him back early because it's a nightmare if we force him back and then a game or two later, he re-injures it. He's out for 2 months or even worse than that. So I did get to talk to Peterson just a little bit in the locker room after the game. Frankly, seemed in pretty good spirits. I was at the Kansas shoot-around on Tuesday, and he seems like he wants to be out there, to be ready to go, but he's got to get cleared. They're going to be very particular about it. But if you're a Kansas fan, the good news is if this is trending the way they think it is, he should be able to make a return at some point next week in Vegas.
Yeah, and I know anytime an elite NBA prospect is sidelined and there's not, and you're exactly right, Bill did add more context to the situation last night. But prior to that, it was like there's limited information available for the fan base, and their minds just go a million different places. Like, is he shutting it down? Is he like Darryn Peterson was a top 3 projected draft pick a year ago. If he thought it was in his best interest to not play college basketball in advance of the draft, he'd just not be doing this. He wants to play college basketball. They want him to play college basketball. You know who else wants him to play college basketball? The NBA wants him to play college basketball. College basketball is where you develop stars who you can put on billboards, who you can put on NBC. It's wonderful, if Nikola Jokic develops into that after he's in the NBA, but it's even better if Cooper Flagg before he gets there. Mm-hmm. There is nothing the NBA would prefer more than Darryn Peterson in a Kansas uniform being awesome and running through the NCAA tournament, because then whoever takes him in the draft can sell tickets off of it. It is in everybody, and I mean everybody's best interest for Darryn Peterson to play basketball. He will. It's just that these hamstrings, they're tough. I know not everybody is athletic like me and Darryn Peterson. So you might not have ever torn your hamstring or had a hamstring issue. But
reminder, Parrish did deal with this walking down steps, not up the steps.
You don't. That was actually it was actually up the steps. It was
up the steps. Okay.
It was up the steps. You didn't have to tell the story. This was a perfectly fine story without the context.
You know what? As a reporter committed to factually accurate journalism, and I appreciate the correction for the record, our listeners deserve the full context of how you're about to go into this, because I do think your experience with your own hamstring issue informs a ton of what awaits for Darryn Peterson.
At the age of 48, I tore my hamstring walking up my stairs. And it hurt bad. I mean, buddy, and it's not even one of those things. Like, hamstrings are weird in the sense that you can't this is going to sound so stupid if you clip it. Hamstrings are weird in the sense that you can't see them. And what I mean is like with that, when somebody rolls their ankle, you see that in a basketball game. When somebody tears an ACL, you see that in a basketball game. When somebody pulls a hamstring, you just sort of see them go, oh, and you're like, oh, what happened? And so then it's like, well, why can't you play? I'm just telling you, as a former athlete who has torn a hamstring, it's not even a question of do you want to play or not. It's like you can't move. You can't do it. You can't do it. And you look up a week later and you still can't do it. And you look up a week later and you still can't do it. I enjoy being on the golf course as much as I enjoy being anywhere. They don't have to pay me to play. I pay them to let me play. There's nowhere I'd rather be on a Sunday morning than on a golf course. But like, there were just Sundays I just could not go because you can't do it. You cannot do it. And I've lived the life Darryn Peterson is living right now. I've been sidelined by a hamstring injury in the year 2025, exactly like Darryn Peterson. And I'm just telling you, KU fans, he's going through it right now. This is a tough type of injury, but my understanding is he will be back hopefully soon, and hopefully also without further hamstring irritations. I know what he's going through. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Parrish is that meme with the guy pointing into the mirror. Get in there and make it about you. Get in there and make I feel like I have. I'd love to be on a golf course on a Sunday morning. So just so you guys know, I know Darryn Peterson is desperate to be out there, just the way that I wanted to be out there swinging.
That's not what I meant. What I meant was that's what I want to do, but I could not do it. All right. Similarly, I'm assuming Darryn Peterson wants to play basketball, but he cannot do it. We've gone through Darryn Peterson and I have lived very similar lives in the year 2025. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Ricky Mortis in the chat. GP and DP going through it, living the same life in 2025. It's just the facts. It's just the facts. And so we connected at Big 12 Media Day. You saw us sit down. You can find that. Find that interview on YouTube. But I feel like we should sometimes it's good to have people in your phone who have been through, the stuff you're going through. And it might be time for DP and I to reconnect. I know his struggles.
That's 15 minutes on the much less compelling game from Tuesday night. GP's on a very tight time crunch, and we have to get to the situation with Kentucky. So, GP, feel free to toss it to commercial, but there's plenty to dive into with Mark Pope and his program.
I've been also sad a little bit in the year 2025, so I can also relate to what Mark Pope is going through because he seemed sad, super sad last night, bordering on depression. Kentucky lost. They seem to have real problems. We'll dive into that next. First, get a word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Final score, Michigan State 83, Kentucky 66. The Spartans handled them no problems in the first half, then continued that in the second half. And after the game, one of the more interesting press conferences you'll ever see. Before I chime in, just you take it because you were in the room. What did you make of Mark Pope after a second loss of the season, expressing real concerns in his own words for the basketball team he has put together?
Yeah. In fact, Josh, if we can in post, we can't do this for our live audience, but in post, let's maybe drop in the Pope clip from the presser so people can really listen and hear more context. We had it on HQ last night as well. Pope was shattered, dejected. He was giving short answers to the media, not in a disrespectful way, but almost in a way of like, I need to hold my tongue on some stuff right now. But to his credit, I mean, he after the press conference was over, he had to in the hallway. He did, post-game radio with Kentucky. He did another interview after that. I spoke with him really briefly. It took him almost 50 minutes to get to the post-game presser to begin with. That locker room scene must have really been something. I actually, as coincidence would have it, I was in the city earlier on Tuesday, so I was able to spend some time with Kentucky in advance of the game. So I was with them for their film review for the scout there, and then went over to the arena with them. And Pope and I got to talking about a few different things. And as we were talking about the game ahead and the season so far and the loss to Louisville, this quote, I won't read off it here. It's in the story. We can link it in the pod and the YouTube description as well. But Pope basically said, our guys don't know how physical they can be yet. They don't know yet what it actually feels like to play your guts out. He's like, I want to have a rotation of 10, 11 guys. Okay. And if we're going to do that, and guys are only going to be asked to play 22, 23 minutes a game, but everyone's going to get a bite of the apple, they need to just run their guts out, and they don't know how to hit that limit yet. And we're going to play this Michigan State team. Now, Pope had never coached against Izzo, period. That was evident by the first game that he went up against him. But he knew his team was going to need to have a level of physicality for this game. Now, some of it was Michigan State was hot from three. It's not like Michigan State it was an Izzo team from 2004, and they just dominated the paint, dominated the inside. That's not exactly what it was, obviously. Michigan State got super hot from three. But it was unintentionally prophetic from Pope to hear him talk about this stuff 8 hours before the game was final. And then you fast forward and you see the way that Kentucky lost. He was absolutely right. He took full responsibility. It is rare to see a coach like that after a game in November. It's year two. Obviously, this job is one with a ton of challenges. And the one thing I didn't put in the column that I got to talking to Pope about right before the shoot around was he was essentially saying, if you can't handle everything that comes with this job, then you can't take the job. Like, it's not always going to be roses and rainbows. There's going to be tough moments. And I hope after tonight, we're going to have met the challenge. Well, that didn't happen. So I credit Pope for facing the criticism. The honeymoon is over. This is his first actual crisis as the coach of Kentucky. Kentucky fans think the rotation is too deep, even not having Jalen Lowe, which is a massive issue. They don't have their point guard, and maybe Quainton's
their best NBA prospect.
And best NBA prospect. But even as I wrote, even without that, Parrish, it doesn't excuse the performance that they put on Tuesday night in Midtown Manhattan. It was bizarrely bad. They did cut it to 10, but they cut it to 10. Michigan State, I think, either got it to 14 or they got it to 12 on consecutive possessions. And Kentucky's spirit was broken in the second half. They weren't going to win the game. They couldn't win the game. There's a laundry list of issues. And just as, national pundits in the sport and seeing the fallout in real time following some of the commentary on social media and then afterward, it will be interesting to see how Kentucky pivots to this, because there's been a lot of just stuff attached to Kentucky so far this season. They have so much more to go. They don't have a high profile game for about 2 more weeks. But the whole scene in the presser was interesting. And then Pope actually, and Josh, I should have sent you this photo. Pope got done his press conference. And then what typically happens is if a coach speaks first and the players are with them, the coach will then leave the room, go back to the locker room and let the players say what they're going to say. Or it's often the reverse angle where the players will go first, they'll leave, then the coach will come in and talk. That didn't happen. Pope got done, and then he wanted to hear what his players had to say. So he was standing just off to the side while Otega Owe took questions. And it was an odd scene. I guess odd is putting it too harshly. It was atypical. And I know that Pope is wearing that loss really hard. So I know I went long, but there's a ton attached to this game. And I want to see if this is going to be the kind of thing that actually is stuck to the team for the rest of the season because of how Pope reacted, or if we're just, okay, it's early, you took a couple of losses, we look up in January and UK's doing just fine, and that was just an early bump in the road. Yeah,
maybe, but if I were a UK fan, I would be concerned about how my coach looks and sounds, because he seems concerned. Yeah. Nobody should have a better grasp for what this basketball team's going to be or can be or is than Mark Pope, and he seems concerned. So I was sitting there watching this last night with my wife, with my whole family, and my wife has no context for anything when it comes to college basketball. I could say anything right now, and it's probably not going to get back to her. She doesn't know who Mark Pope is. She doesn't know if he's supposed to have a good team or not. She couldn't probably tell you what NIL is. But she watched the press conference, and afterwards, the second he got done talking, you know what she said? I typed it just so I would have it exactly right. God, that's depressing. She was like, what is going on? She's like, what is happening? Tell me what's going on with this guy and his team. And I was like, well, they spent $20+ million on a roster. It has been described as the most expensive basketball team in the history of college athletics. Mm-hmm. And they were favorites at tip-off, down by 17 at the half, lost by 17. And he looks like a man who's starting to feel it a little bit. One of the things that I think we all learned last season and liked was that he really reconnected with the fan base and with the local media, and in a way that John Calipari kind of got away from. John sort of detached from everybody and insulated himself because, I don't know, just I guess when you have that job that long, anytime you go through a downtime, it's going to get intense, and maybe you don't emotionally bounce back from that the way you would hope. But John kind of detached at the end at UK in a variety of ways. And Mark seemed to intentionally reconnect with fans, with Kentucky Sports Radio, everything under that umbrella. For sure. Well, the problem with really being online and connecting and and having a real grasp for what the fan base is saying and thinking and feeling is that when it gets like this, you have a real grasp for what they're saying and feeling, and you hear it and you're in it. And it looked like that was taking a toll on him last night. It looks like he is very aware that his own fans are saying, did we really pay $20 million for this? Mm-hmm. And then that goes to, well, remember when we hired the guy, we were wondering, should we have done this really? And now you're back in that stuff, and this is hard. I've said this about, there's a handful of jobs like this. The Kentucky job is perhaps the biggest example of it. Oh man, there's nothing better when it's going well, but when it's not, I don't know that there's anything worse or tougher to deal with.
One line from my column last night: this kind of crisis is the exact reason why Kentucky and John Calipari had to split 18 months ago, making way for Pope to restore unbridled optimism at his alma mater. And then another line is essentially, I'm going to paraphrase it here, is the real drawback to being a team that spends a ton of money on its roster is that if it does not go the way that you want it to go, then that's the thing that's attached to your team. That's what people reference all the time. That's what your identity is. And as I wrote, that is Kentucky's identity right now. For now, and maybe in a month they can elevate their play. They can establish themselves as a top 10 team and get this done. But for now, this is the team that spent more money in the portal than anyone else, that doesn't have a high major win, that is out of sorts, and is going to be referred to as, the biggest overspenders in college basketball. They can move out of that, but in the here and now, that's what they are. Pope, just to reiterate the point, he did, multiple times just take all the blame. Even there were some questions that were very good questions in the press conference that were trying to get Pope to talk about some things that the players did not do or came up short. And he just very craftily didn't allow the players to take any of the blame on this, even though, quite frankly, a lot of it is on Pope. You assemble the roster, you spend all this money, and it's not working. But players also didn't play well. They didn't have the physicality. They fell way short. And on the Michigan State side, and Spartans fans, I know you're super excited. We're going to talk about your team as well here. While you look at Michigan State, you look at Tom Izzo, everything he stands for, he got asked about roster retention in the portal, and he gave some quotes on that. It's not like Kentucky is entirely a new team. That's not what this is. Right. Kentucky does return pieces that played for this team last year, guys that played real minutes. They just happened to bring on a lot of other pieces that were in the portal. I think Michigan State might be returning 6 players from a season ago. Kentucky is returning 4. So it's not like this vast chasm overall, but at the very heart of it, you did have one team on one side, Michigan State, which has a point guard. Jeremy Fears was awesome. I think he took 3 or 4 shots, had 13 assists, was the most impactful player on the floor. Very stark to see him doing what he was doing, and Kentucky not having Jalen Lowe. Denzel Aberdeen's not a point guard, and they got to try and figure out what they're going to do between Aberdeen, Owe. Jasper Johnson is not remotely there physically yet, so they got a huge issue there. But for Michigan State to play as connected as it did, Kurt Tang comes off the bench and scores a career-high 15. Jaxon Kohler, a senior, just like a typical Izzo guy growing into it. He goes for 20. And you see what Izzo stands for, what he talks about all the time, and how that really coalesced into a win on Tuesday night versus the mercenary. I'm not saying this is what it is, but you can frame it this way with Kentucky: the mercenary, the guns for hire, the super expensive roster that just they look like they were still getting to know each other's names on the floor last night. So it's glaring. Doesn't help that this is coming off the Louisville loss where they were competitive, but Louisville just outplayed them in that game as well. And you also got this weird attachment where something happened before the Louisville game in the locker room, and Pope referenced it, but he won't give details, and he still hasn't said what it is. I honestly don't really care about this, but Kentucky, it's the fan base. It's actually it's a weird misstep for Pope, because then after the Eastern Illinois game, in the post game, he referenced how Taylor Swift likes to leave, her fans little Easter eggs and stuff. You can't do that stuff and then lose these games, because it's not that the fan base is turning on Pope, because it's not. We're still early, but they will. This is Kentucky, man. They will hold you to account immediately with this stuff. And this is the first true moment. And I use the word intentionally. It's a small crisis, but this is a crisis. When you are Kentucky, when this is your alma mater, when you reportedly spend in the neighborhood of $20 million on your roster, and you have 2 high-profile flops against NCAA tournament teams to start the season, you got to figure it out quick. Kentucky's only saving grace right now is it's got 2 weeks before it has another high major opponent. So we'll see if they can course correct.
A few more things on Kentucky than on Michigan State. You're right. They bring back. This gets called the most expensive team because of what they spent in the transfer portal, but they did bring back some meaningful players, including the preseason SEC Player of the Year,
who's getting paid a ton. So that's also where the money's going, obviously. Yeah.
Right. They you ready for this? They brought back more players this season than they had brought back last season, right? Because that was totally fresh last year. So it's inaccurate to just say, well, this is what happens when you have a whole new team, because they don't have a whole new team, but they do have a lot of new players. And I do think this is what can happen when you are more or less getting married after speed dating, because that's what all this stuff is. You don't really know the people you're getting. I hear this from do you hear this from coaches all the time? I used to know who I was signing. I don't know who I'm signing now. I've got somebody on my staff working in analytics who tells me this is the type of statistically, this is the type of person we should be looking at. And then I get him on film and I go, okay, I like what I'm seeing here. And then I talk to him on Zoom and then I give him $800,000. That's how this stuff is working. And it looked like last night, and maybe it was actually perfect that Kentucky got exposed by Michigan State, because it looked like last night you had a basketball program that beat basketball players. That's what I watched. I watched a basketball game, and the basketball program beat the team that had just a bunch of basketball players that still don't know how to play together and might not really love each other the way that you would hope. Whereas with Tom Izzo, and I talked to Tom about this in Illinois, in Chicago, greater Chicago area, Big Ten Media Day. I love the way he talks about this stuff now. He's like, I don't like my profession anymore. Like, he's sort of detached from like trying to change the world. I'm just going to coach my basketball team, run my basketball program. I'm done with trying to fix everything or bitching about it. I'm just going to coach my basketball team and run my program. But even he says, like I was talking to, he said, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm doing it the way it needs to be done. I don't even know if it's the right way to do it anymore, but it's the way I want to do it. And I wouldn't want to do it the other way. I want to have a locker room of guys who care about Michigan State because they've been here. And I don't want to have guys here for 2 years and then go sign somebody I met last week in the transfer portal because I couldn't get my guys that I have been living and dying with good enough. I mean, I'm going to do that sometimes because I have to, but that's not the way I want to run my program. I want to have guys who are here for 2, 3, 4 years, and that's the way I'm going to go out. And I don't know that it'll work without hiccup. I don't know that it won't get him caught some year. Shaka might be getting caught by that same sort of mentality right now. But I like it. I like that he sticks to it. I like that he's committed to it. And last night it seemed to pay off. That, you know, he's got the point guard that he keeps comparing to Mateen Cleaves.
Yes.
He's got, and he loves Mateen. So if he ever puts your name in that sentence,
For sure.
then you are special in his mind. And Jeremy Fears, like you said, I agree. Statistically, perhaps if you just look at points and that kind of stuff, not the most impressive player on the court last night, but he controlled the basketball game and is the main reason Michigan State controlled the basketball game from start to finish. I don't know that Michigan State's going to win the Big Ten or go to a Final Four with this roster, but they shot the ball well and looked like a competent Michigan State basketball team last night. And on the other side, it just didn't look like that at all.
I'll tell you this, Michigan State a season ago obviously had a really awesome year. 30 wins. They get a 2 seed. They make it to the Elite Eight. I talked with someone with Michigan State ahead of last night's game, and this was before the Kentucky game was decided, remember. They feel better now about this team at this point in the calendar, so, 4 or 5 games into the season, than they did about last season's team. Now, last season's team did have that really ugly, the Champions Classic game against Kansas a year ago. If you've forgotten about it, it was not a pretty game whatsoever. So it stands to reason why they might have a little more optimism, because keep in mind, Michigan State now has defeated 2 SEC teams, Arkansas and Kentucky. And Izzo actually told me afterward, I got about 3 or 4 minutes with them before, because Pope took forever to get to the post-game press conference. It's typically not the case. So I had a little bit of time with them. He said, when I was looking at the Arkansas tape ahead of that, he goes, I told my staff, we got the Lakers coming in here. And then he goes, and then we were doing this. And I was like, it's the Lakers plus. Well, Kentucky did not look like the Lakers. It didn't look like the G League Lakers. It didn't look like the Minneapolis Lakers from 1947. None of it there. Credit to Michigan State getting it done. Sparty is going to be next on a high-profile stage against North Carolina on Thanksgiving night down in Fort Myers, Florida. But a good start, and yes, probably underrated. Michigan State heading into the season. The Tom Izzo guy certainly knows how to coach. With Kentucky, it's Loyola Maryland, it's Tennessee Tech, and then coincidentally enough, their next high-profile game is also against North Carolina. That will be in Rupp Arena on December 2nd. we wait to see more there. And then last thing, and then we can move it on. GP's actually kind of up against it, so I think I'm going to be closing out the show solo here. Jalen Lowe not playing. He's still got the shoulder issue. There's no telling when he's coming back. I know, some Kentucky faithful believe that he might just not return. I don't know if that's the case whatsoever, but same shoulder hurt, major issues within a month of each other. How bad is it? We still don't know if it requires surgery, if it doesn't. All I know is they don't have anyone remotely like Jalen Lowe on that roster. And for all the depth that Kentucky paid for, they did not have a backup plan or could not. And it's hard to arrange a backup plan. If you're going to have someone as good as Jalen Lowe, you're typically not going to have someone that's 85% of Jalen Lowe that's going to come play for your team because they're going to want to get the minutes there. But it is a major issue. And if he does not return for a while or period, then it completely changes the calculus of Kentucky's outlook on this season.
So let's look ahead to the next couple of days before we get out of here. But first, we got to pay bills. Let's get one more. Can we get one more word from our partners?
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons.
It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, we'll get through this pretty quickly. In the spirit of full transparency, I've got a flight to catch that leaves.
Well, I didn't know if you were up against it right now. I mean, you tell me.
I'm okay for another few minutes.
Okay.
Let's not push it. I don't usually fly on Wednesday, so when I got these dates, I was just like, I'll take this flight that I always take. And then as the date was growing closer, I was like, so Wednesday, that's the day where I have to do the Eye on College Basketball podcast and the Gary Parrish show. And it's hard to get all that stuff done before you get on a flight at the time I've got to get on a flight. So I've been scrambling this entire. If you want to know how pressed for time I am, notice that I'm working off of AirPods right now. And the reason is because the only way I could make this work is check my bag early. So before I even came to studio this morning, I went to the airport, checked my bag, and I had to check all my podcasting equipment.
And we just lost another minute, by the way.
It's fine. I'm going to be fine.
Okay.
We've got this. Okay. I've got this planned out.
Okay.
On Wednesday night, we got 2 top 15 matchups,
Yeah.
and one of them is a top 5 showdown. Number 4, Arizona at number 3, UConn. It's inside Gamble, 7 o'clock Eastern. It's on FS1, and then it's not 7 o'clock Eastern.
Oh, it is 7. They changed it. Huh. It was 6:30 before. I'm going to the game. I'll be there. So I've been planning for 6:30, and I just checked the schedule. I'm almost positive this was 6:30 at one point. Anyway, it's at 7.
Okay. You were scaring me. Number 11, Alabama against number 8, Illinois. That's inside Chicago's United Center. That's 9 o'clock Eastern on FS1. Tell me what you're most interested in those two matchups.
Yeah, this is just tremendous. By the way, just as an aside, Dayton plays at Marquette tonight as well on True TV. Just worth keeping an eye on. Like, I'll have it on the iPad when I'm at Arizona UConn, because let's see if Marquette cannot mess around here. Dayton could technically be a little bit dangerous, but that's a side dish. Arizona UConn, Arizona Illinois, the big 2 games here. A top 5 game in an on-campus environment in November. Awesome. I cannot wait to get up there. Last night the Garden was fine. Like, we had a big story with Kentucky. Like, there was something big that came out of the Garden on Tuesday night, and something that really no one saw coming. So I'll take something like that every time for podcast purposes and the like. Here we just got an elite awesome matchup. The losing team, like, if Arizona loses on the road and you don't get, your doors blown off by 28, okay, well, you went on the road. Like, they're going to come to your place next year. It's not a bad loss on the resume whatsoever. UConn, you don't want a home loss when you got a team that this is good coming into your building, but it also will almost definitely be a quad 1 loss on the resume when we get to March. And Arizona has already proven to be a really, really good team so far with wins over Florida and UCLA. And to get this is tremendous. I know you're tight on time, so I'll try and edit my thoughts a little bit here. But I do want to see if Braden Burris just shows up, period, in this game. He hasn't really done anything for Arizona so far. And going into the season, there was more, or is equal amount of hype and buzz about what Burris could be as what Koa Pete could be. On the Koa Pete note, how is he going to handle going up against UConn's front line? Is he in for a big game or not? How will the freshman handle this kind of environment? Because this is not Florida in Vegas. This is not UCLA, not in Pauley Pavilion. You are going into an environment that you have not remotely ever experienced as a player before in your life. Gamble is going to be on fire. Can't wait to get to that game tonight, and then obviously we'll talk about it on the Friday show. And then with the other game, and by the way, Braylon Mullins, when can he return? I would not expect that he'll be playing tonight, but I know UConn fans are eagerly awaiting when he can come back. Hurley's given them optimism, saying that his recovery timeline is even ahead of the pace that they thought it would be. Alabama, Illinois. Illinois is the top 5 team in some metrics right now. There is a chance that this game could, if they really cut it loose, be another Alabama game where it's first to 90 plus. I really hope that we get there. On the Illinois side, David Mirkovich coming off just an awesome game. But, is this going to be a Stojakovic night? Are we going to see Keaton Wagler step up and play big? Big Z has had some nice moments there. On the Alabama side, they take the loss against Purdue at home. It's been almost a week since that. They got the win over St. John's, and now they're in this big stretch, as we mentioned previously. I'll see them out in Vegas next week. But are you going to have Philon and Holloway be able to kind of get where they want to get to against that Illinois defense? It's going to be a huge challenge for the Fighting Illini in this game. It's such a good game where I'm so thrilled to go to Arizona UConn. I cannot wait to be there, but it's like, damn, like I'm going to miss some of this game by nature of just the job there. So I'm super pumped for both of these, and can't wait to see what emerges here. What a great thing for college basketball. You got just this double header of just stud games with 4 Final Four contenders, as far as I'm concerned.
Also on Wednesday, CBS Sports Network, 7 Eastern, it's Villanova-LaSalle. Norlander and I are going to handle halftime duties for that. So
we are.
Check it out. On Thursday, the Baha Mar Championship is on CBS Sports Network. I will be in studio. It's going to be me, Brent Stover, Wally Zerbiak. And do you hear about the new addition to the CBS Sports Network crew?
I did not.
Emeka Okafor.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
It's a big-time name.
It's a big-time
name. All right.
Big-time name. So us 4 will be in studio tomorrow. We got number 1 Purdue against Memphis. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern. Then number 15 Texas Tech against Wake Forest at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Norlander, quick on this. Can my alma mater be competitive? Just be competitive. Just not get embarrassed against the sports top-ranked team.
Define competitive.
Like, don't have people tweeted me at halftime asking if it's time to fire Penny Hardaway.
Can Memphis keep it within 15 against Purdue? Yes or no? 14.5.
I would say no.
I'm going to say no as well.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
I barely kept it within 14 against UNLV.
I think they kept it at exactly 14 by the end of it. But that is 6 Eastern. We're tuning in for, frankly, just to see what kind of Memphis team shows up. Braden Smith, always worth the watch. And then Texas Tech, Wake Forest. Wake Forest has had some opportunities here. See if they can steal it there on Thursday night. A couple of good, couple good days worth of games here overall. I'm looking forward to it. By the way, ironically enough here, and I know you got to go, You're wearing the hat that I know that I typically have in my background. If you're listening, go over and watch us on YouTube. But I usually have this hat in my background shot. I'm rocking the hat.
I like that one.
Well, they made this old school CBS Sports hat. Shouts to Adi Joseph, our boss, who hooked me up with this when I went into the offices yesterday. They made these for the NFL Today throwback, and I saw that he had one a few weeks back. I was like, I absolutely need that hat. I need the hat. I'm going to put it in my backdrop. So I wore this one for the first time today, and coincidentally enough, you're wearing this very hat here, which is absolutely wild. But yeah, no, love the hat. Appreciate you squeezing this in. I know this is a shorter episode. I'm on like 5 hours of sleep. Shouts to Jeff Borzello, our buddy. He was driving up. He's going to be at the UConn game, but he drove me home, got me home earlier. Listened to a little rewatchables on one speed, by the way. We got to get out of here, but we had a whole thing about what speed you listen to podcasts on. We had a poll recently. I'm a 1.5 guy. You want to listen at one speed. I can't live my life like that. I listen to podcasts at 1 speed is not my style. Is that what you do? Are you a 1 speeder?
I'm a 1 speed guy.
No, I can't do that. And we heard from people that said, I cannot listen to Norlander or Parrish at 1 speed. Like, if it sounds like they have brain damage if I listen to them at regular speed, which, to be honest, the speed might have nothing to do with that.
I might have brain damage. I had a torn hamstring. I don't know if you heard about that.
I think you might have mentioned it a couple times.
All right, then let's get out of here. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That's got to be reflected in the comments. So do that. We will talk to you again on Friday morning. Till then, take care.